kids, it's Mrs. Compton, and we're going to do your Chapter 2 review, starting with page 97. And we're actually going to do all of page 97, but you can only see my table for right now. So for questions 1 through 3, use the table. So the first thing we should do before we even read a question is really to read and analyze the table. So stop and think for a moment. What do you see on the table? Okay. I kind of noticed that there were kind of two pieces of this table. So this was one piece here where we had trees listed, the ivory silk lilac, the white pine, and the bur oak. And then it did the same thing over here, but it listed 3 new kinds of trees: hazelnut, red maple, birch. And then I noticed that there's a regular price, and then if you buy 3 or more of each kind of tree, or 3 or more of one kind of tree, I should say, excuse me, that the cost would be $22 per tree instead of $25 per tree. Okay, so they give you a discount when you buy in bulk. Okay, one thing I did want to point out though is it's not $22 for 3 trees. It's $22 per tree if you buy 3 or more trees. Okay, so that's going to be important to keep in mind. So as we read the question, it says, what is the cost of 3 bur oak trees? Excuse me, that was a tongue twister for me. What is the cost of 3 bur oak trees? Okay, so we're going to go over to the bur oak, and here's the regular price. But remember, there's a discount for each tree when you buy 3 or more. So because they're buying 3 or more, each of the 3 trees will cost $32. So we are trying to solve 32 times 3. So you can see here that I have 32 times 3. And that's not as friendly for me to do as 30 times 3 in my head. So I actually think I'm going to do 30 times 3. And I think I'm going to do then 2 times 3. So I'm going to use the distributive property and this area model. So you might want to do that too, or maybe you feel like, I want to do something else. So I know for sure that 30 times 3 is 90. So I'm going to put 90 in here. And I know for sure that 2 times 3 is 6. And I know 90 plus 6 is 96. So the cost would be $96. All right. Now, after we get that done and calculated, we actually need to stop and think, is that reasonable? So let's go back and think. Price for 3 or more trees, $32 each. Okay. And we bought 3 of them. So yeah, that is reasonable. So they spent $96. So $96 were spent on 3 bur oak trees. Okay. All right. Let's hit the road to number 2. Or excuse me. Oh yes, it is number 2. I was going to say, is it number 1A but in 1B? No, it's 2. Okay. All right. So this is the same table as last time. So we have question 2. Go ahead and read it to yourself. Okay. So what do we know for sure in this story? We know for sure Mr. Tan is going to buy a whole bunch of trees, right? He's going to buy 4 white pine trees and 5 birch trees. Okay, so here's the white pine, and he's going to buy more than 3 of them. So he's getting that discounted price of $37 per tree. And 5 birch trees. Where are the birch trees? There they are. And he's buying more than 3 trees, so he's getting the discounted price there. Okay, so we are trying to solve 4 white pine trees times $37 per pine tree, right? So we could kind of put those in parentheses because those are going to be grouped together. Plus, we're going to be doing 5 birch trees that cost $8 each. All right. So once we figure out what that is, that will be the cost of the trees in total, right? So we'll just put equals blank. So we're trying to figure out that. Okay, so how would you do 4 times 37? Think about that. You can actually even hit pause and you can do 4 times 37 right now. All right, so I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do the area model because that's my fave. So 4 times, I'm going to split the 37 into 30 and a 7. And I'm going to do that. You can do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. So 30 times 4 I know is 120. And 7 times 4 I know is 28. And so I'm going to put those together. So 120 plus 28 is 148. Okay, so I know on the, oops, why did my dollar sign go way over there? I know on the 4 white pine trees, they spent $148. So that's what the 148 represents, right? Just the white pine. Okay, so now I'm going to do the 5 birch trees. And luckily, the 5 birch trees are just $40. That's a fact that I know. 5 times 8 is 40. If you wanted to, you could also put it into a model if you wanted, but you probably don't need to because you probably know how to count by fives. So 5 times 8 is 40. So if you wanted to see it in a model, there it is. Okay, so now we have to figure out what they are together. So we're doing 148 plus 40, which you probably know the answer to. So that would be 140 plus another 40 would be 180 plus the 8 more. So $188. Okay, now it does say show your work and explain how you found the answer. So you have to also explain your thinking. I'm not going to be writing out all of my thinking here. You can do that yourself. So if I were to say something about explaining my thinking, I would say I used the area model to find what the cost of the 4 white pine trees were, which was 4 times 37, got 148, and 8 times 5 is 40, and I added them together. Okay, so you could say something like that. All right, we're on to number 3. So we've got Rudy here who wants to buy either 3 ivory silk lilac trees or 2 bur oak trees. He wants to buy the trees that cost less. What trees will he buy? How much will he save? And we have to show our work. Okay, so we've got multiple questions to answer in this one. First, we have to figure out how much the ivory silk lilac trees will cost and how much the bur oak trees will cost. And then we have to figure out which one costs less and how much money he saves. And of course, we're going to show our work. Okay, so let's check this out. We've got over here the ivory silk lilac tree. We've got that. And Rudy's going to buy 3 of those if that is the least expensive option. So he will get the price for 3 or more as the discounted price of $22 per tree. But he is going to either do that or he's going to buy 2 bur oak trees. Now remember, if you don't buy 3 trees or more, you don't get the discounted price. So now we're in this column for the bur oak trees. So we have to make sure that we are thinking about, do they get the discount or not? All right, so he wants to buy the trees that cost less. All right, let's figure this out, you guys. So if he buys 3 ivory silk trees, I would write 3 groups of trees that cost $22 each, and I would find that total. Or maybe he'll do the bur oaks, which he's only going to buy 2 bur oaks, and they each cost $35. And we would figure out that. Okay, so now let's find out which option cost less. All right, if you're anything like me, you think the distributive property saves lives and you just split up numbers all the time and multiply them. So in my mind, I'm going to split this 22 into a 20 and a 2. And then I'm going to multiply each of these times 3. So I'm going to do 20 times 3. And then I'm going to add it to the 2 times the 3. Okay, so I've got 20 times 3 and 2 times 3. Okay, so 20 times 3 I can do because I can count by 20. 20, 40, 60. All right, so that's that part. And then plus 2 times 3, well, we all know 2 times 3 we can do on our counting by 2s, which is 2, 4, 6. Or maybe you just know that it equals 6. All right, so 60 plus 6 equals 66. So the ivory silk trees would cost $66 for the 3 of them, right? Okay, so now we're done with that piece, but we still have to figure out if the bur oaks would be less expensive. Okay, so maybe you guys know that if you have 2 times a number, it just means double, right? So maybe you know how to double 30 and then double 5. I'm going to guess a lot of you probably did mental math on this one, and you probably knew that it was 70, but let's show our work anyway. Okay, so I still like to split numbers apart into the distributive property. So I'm going to go 30. I'm going to go 5. And I'm just going to go 2 times 30. And then 5 times 2. Or 2 times 30 and 2 times 5. How about that? I'll keep it in order. 2 times 30 plus 2 times 5. Okay, 2 times 30 is 60. And 2 times 5 is 10. And that would make a 70. 60 plus 10 is 70. Oops. All right. So now we know that the bur oak costs 70 and the ivory silk costs 66. So we know for sure that they are going to go with the 2 bur oak trees. So now we need to write our sentence. So Rudy will buy the 2 bur oak trees and he will save. Okay, how much money is going to save? How far is it from 66 to 70? So the answer to that would be 4. So Rudy will save $4. Done. All right, we are on to number 6. And it says for numbers 6A through 6C, write an equation or a comparison sentence using the numbers on the lines. Okay, so actually this should say not lines, but tiles. We're going for numbers on these tiles here. Okay, so we have these tiles, and we're going to be using each of these tiles one time only to answer the questions in 6A through 6C. So let's check out what it says. So here's 6A, and this is already done for you in your book. Okay, so here is 1 square, and this square is obviously worth 4, it's showing us. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these little tiny 4 squares could fit into this larger rectangle, right? So there are 8 times as many of these squares here than there are here. So then when I look at it, down here it says blank times as many as blank is, oh, that 32 shouldn't be there, but it's okay, we'll put it back. So we already know the answer is 32. It's being shown right here. So 8 times as many as 4 is 32. So let's write that in. So 8 times as many as 4 is 32. Basically, that's a long way of saying 8 times 4 equals 32. Okay, let's look at 6b. Here's 6b. All right, we know we've used the 32. Excuse me. That one's used up. And we used a 4 and an 8. I'm just putting my check marks here because I know I'm going to be using each one of these one time. Okay, so let's analyze 6b. I like to start down here because this tells me my number. So 8, and then how many times as many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times as many as 8 equals what? So 6 times 8 equals 48. And remember, this is also, you can also read 6 times 8 equals 48 as 6 groups of 8 equals 48. So you can actually see 6 groups of 8 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 groups of 8 is 48. All right. So now we've gotten another 6, another 8, and a 48. Okay. So let's head on to 6C. So I think these 3 were the only ones that were left. 3, 9, and 27. So for numbers, oh, I'm sorry, we don't need to read those directions again. It's the exact same thing. So 6C starts right here. Blank times as many as blank is blank. Okay, so what would you write here? So, actually, I don't know if you have this in your book. I think you do. So 9 times 3 equals 27. So we would say blank times as many as blank is 27. We know that one to be true, right? So we would just say 9 times as many as 3 is 27. All right. Sweet. That seems right to me, and I now can officially check off all of my tiles, and I already had these other tiles already checked off. So we're good to go on page 99. Now you have to do the rest of page 99. I'm just not doing 7. I am, however, going to skip over to number 10 on page 100. So if you'd like to turn with me, you can. And here it goes. For numbers 10A through 10B, use place value to find the product. All right, you're looking at this probably going, huh? Let's cover up some of this. I like it better when my eyes can just focus on a little bit. So I'm starting to look to see, like, what do I know for sure? So 3 times 600 is the same as 3 times blank hundreds. Okay, well, I can see that the 3 is the same on one side and the other. And then I see that we have a times 600 and then just the words 100. So if you think about it, 600 is actually made of, I don't want yellow. 600 is actually made of 6 times 100. Would you guys agree with that? So then basically, if you know that 600 is made of 6 times 100, you can kind of see the answers. There's the word hundreds, and there's the number 100. So the number that has to go in this rectangle is 6. So 3 times 600 is the same as 3 times 6 hundreds. Okay, that makes sense to me. Now, the next part says is then equal to blank hundreds. Okay, so now what they're actually wanting us to do is this. So 3 times 6 is going to give us what? You probably know that one, right? 3 times 6 equals 18. So that's the same as 18. And then hundreds. We still have the hundreds there. Okay, so now we're going to move down, and we're actually going to just get the complete answer in there. So 1800s. So basically 1800s is the same as 18 times 100, right? Sometimes you'll hear adults say the word 1800 or the number 1800, and that would stand for 18 hundreds. So we would write it like this. And that's the same as 1,800. All right. How'd that go? Actually, after looking at it and kind of covering up some of it, I feel like it actually went really well. All right, so let's take a peek at 10B. Go ahead and read it to yourself. Okay. So looks like we're doing kind of the same thing again. So let's try it out. 5 times 400 is the same as 5 times blank hundreds. Okay, remember 400 can be split into 4 times 100. Right? So you can see your 100, the word 100. So what's missing must be the 4. Whoa, Nelly, I got a little carried away on that. Okay, there. And then down here we will write what? Are you thinking about it? Remember how we did it last time? Okay, we would actually do this part now. So 5 times 4 hundreds would give us 20 hundreds. Okay, now 20 hundreds is the same as 20 times 100. Or 20 written out 100 times. That's a lot of 20s, right? So that's the same as 20 hundreds, or 2,000. Okay? So when you get 5 times 400, you can actually think about it as 5 times 4 times 100. So another way of kind of adding on to this idea is to think about 5 times 4 times 100. So that's the same, because here is your 400, right? And then we kind of almost just used the associative property because we grouped 5 times 4 together and found out 5 times 4 was 20. And then we still had to multiply that 100. So basically, these moves that I just typed out right here are the same moves that are happening up here. It's basically the associative property. We just grouped things together a bit differently. All right, let's check out the next one. So we've got Liam here. Liam has, actually, you probably want a chance to read it to yourself. So read it to yourself. Okay. This is multi-step, right? So Liam has 3 boxes of baseball cards with 50 cards in a box. All right, so I'm going to get out my highlighter here. So 3 boxes of baseball cards with 50 cards in each box. Okay. He also has 5 boxes with 40 basketball cards in each box. Okay. And if Liam goes to the store and buys 50 more baseball cards, how many baseball and basketball cards does Liam have? Okay. It's a lot of thinking to do. Sometimes I almost just like to write one big old expression so I can figure it out. So 3 boxes of baseball cards with 50 cards in each. Okay, so 3 boxes with 50 in each. Okay, so we know that for sure. Okay, plus he also has 5 boxes with 40 basketball cards, but I'm just going to write 40 in each. We know they're all cards. Plus, he wants to go to the store and buy 50 more cards. I'm going to write buys 50 more. Okay, so we know that that's what we have to solve. So now it's time to put it into an expression, and then we'll evaluate that expression, otherwise known as solve. Okay, so 3 boxes with 15 each. So 3 groups of 50. I don't need parentheses, but I'm just going to use them because I like to kind of organize my thoughts. So that's that part. Plus 5 groups of 40 plus 50. Okay. So here we go. We've got to solve this. So what would you do first? Think about that. Maybe you know 50 plus 50 is 100, and another 50 would make 150. So maybe you just already know that 3 times 50 is 150. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, then you have to do 5 times 40. So 5 times 40, maybe you would say you would do 40 times 5 and say 40, 80, and kind of count by 40s 5 times. You could do that. Or maybe you remember 5 times 4 tens. So 5, 10, 15, 20 tens is the same as 200. So 5 times 40 is 200 plus 50 more. Okay, so now we know that, let's see, I'm going to show us. This became this. This became this. And this became this, right? Now we've solved that part, and that we've gotten 150 plus 200 plus 50. The 50 hasn't changed yet at all. Okay, so now how would you solve 150 plus 200 plus 50? I have a guess for that. I'm going to guess you're probably going to add 150 and 50 first to form a 200. And you probably know 200 plus 200 is 400. So that would be our final answer, I think. But there was a lot of information, so I'm going to go back and read just to make sure. Can you guys go back and read too? Okay. So I did go back and I wanted to make sure I answered the actual question. If Liam goes to the store and buys 50 more baseball cards, how many baseball and basketball cards does Liam have? So the answer would be 400. My final step is going to be to write a sentence. So Liam would have 400 baseball and basketball cards all together. All right, donezo. Looking good, kids. All right, I'll see you for part 2 of the review coming up next. Bye.